Welcome into Pro Football Daily. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Wednesday, May 31st. It is the dead period in the NFL right now. You do have teams going through OTAs, but not a lot of news to speak of. So last week we did our AFC Power Rankings. This week, right now, we're going to dive into the NFC side of things with our first Power Rankings here on the channel. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, covering all things NFL here on Pro Football Daily. Let's dive into these power rankings, shall we? So we will start with Tier 1, the cream of the crop in this conference in the NFC. At 1 overall for me, it's still the Philadelphia Eagles, the 2022 NFC champions. This is the most talented roster in football, in my opinion. Would be by themselves, but for losing some of their coaching staff to attrition across the league, right? You have Shane Steichen going to Indy. You have your defensive coordinator heading out to Arizona. You also did lose Javon Hargrave to the team that is number 2 on this list, but I still look at the Eagles from top to bottom, one of the most complete rosters in the NFL. Next up is the San Francisco 49ers, a team who believed that they would win the NFC Championship if Brock Purdy had not gotten hurt. Kyle Shanahan, what can you say about this guy? He's an offensive mastermind. Does not seem to matter who his quarterback is. Of course, they've got Brock Purdy. They're waiting on him to get back from injury, but they've got other options at the position as well. They've got an extremely talented group of offensive skill position players. You look at Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, etc. The list goes on and on. They've got an incredibly talented defensive front, maybe the best linebacking core in the league. They've got it made on both sides of the ball. They did lose their defensive coordinator, D'Amico Ryans, to the Houston Texans, their head coach now, but I think the San Francisco 49ers, they are locked and loaded and ready to compete at the highest level again in 2023, and they should be one of the top 2 teams in the NFC, bottom line. Up next, you've got Tier 2 in the NFC, and I've got a team all by themselves here as legitimate contenders. Number 3 overall on this list. Tier 2 all by themselves, the Dallas Cowboys. I love everything about this roster, everything about this football team outside of the fact that Mike McCarthy is going to be calling plays for them and the fact that he's their head coach. This is a team that is loaded on offense and defense, one of the best passing games in the league, really quality offensive line, really great defensive front. I talked about them maybe having the best pass rush in the entire NFL in 2023. Love everything about them, but they've been an underachieving group for years and years and years. Beyond this regime, it's just been an underachieving organization in Dallas. They've been talented, they've been a good drafting team, they've had good quarterback play, but they have just not been able to get over the hump. In the playoffs have the Dallas Cowboys. So for me, as much as I love them and would love to put them up at the cream of the crop tier in Tier 1, I've got them by themselves in Tier 2 as legitimate contenders. I think they can do it, but do I believe that they will get over the top with Mike McCarthy as their head coach and play caller? I'm not so sure. Next up for me is Tier 3, teams that should make the playoffs in 2023. At 4 overall, we've got the Detroit Lions, one of the all vibes teams for me. I like so much of what they've done, love their coaching staff, love what they're doing overall. They have an elite offensive line, which is always going to raise your floor and your ceiling, but will eschewing positional value in the draft pay off, right? They went running back and then they went off-ball linebacker in the first round of the 2023 NFL draft. And while I like both of the players they landed in Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell, I'm just not sure that that was the most prudent course of action. We'll see how it pays off for the Detroit Lions, but I expect them to go from a 9-8 team in 2022 to a team that should be competing to win their division and probably should be the favorites in the NFC North in 2023. I like a lot of what the Lions have done with their roster. Again, love their coaching staff. I think their offense is going to be extremely explosive. The defense should take another step in the right direction. I have them as a playoff team in 2023. Next up, at 5 overall, Seattle Seahawks. This is a team that should have one of the very best offenses in the league, in my opinion, top 10 at worst. Geno Smith, you talk about him amongst the ranks of quarterbacks, and he's one of my top 10 guys right now because he can play at an extremely high level from a mental standpoint. He can make throws to all levels of the field, and he does make those throws. He routinely makes big-time, big boy throws that a lot of other quarterbacks seemingly just do not attempt. Of course, I don't have Geno Smith in the elite tier of quarterbacks, but would I take him over a Kirk Cousins or a Jared Goff right now? Absolutely, I certainly would. Daniel Jones as well. I think Geno Smith is the best quarterback of that grouping, but I think you look at some of the areas of the Seahawks roster, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to get over the top in 2023 and really push in the playoffs. But I definitely think they will make the playoffs in that weaker NFC conference in 2023. Next up, number 6 overall, New York Giants, another playoff team in 2022 who was actually able to beat the Minnesota Vikings in the playoffs. They're well coached, they're tough, they have talent enough on both sides of the ball. How far can Danny Dimes take you? That's my biggest question. Like, I love Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, Azeez Ojulari. They've got so much fun talent on defense. Obviously, Saquon Barkley. They added Jalen Hyatt to the offense as well. They've got talent on the offensive line. But the question is, how far can Daniel Jones take you? I do love what he brings to you as a tough gamer type of quarterback, a guy who can pick up a ton of yards on the ground for you and really put his body on the line. But what is his ceiling? What is this team ceiling with Daniel Jones under center? I'm not sure. Number 7, the final team in this tier of teams that I believe should make the playoffs. It's the Minnesota Vikings. They were one of the most overachieving teams in the NFL in 2022. You saw that down the stretch. They didn't perform as well, couldn't win a playoff game. I do think the defense should be improved, if only by health. I love adding Jordan Addison to the mix to pair with Justin Jefferson. I think that could give them one of the most potent receiving duos in the league. But big game Kirk Cousins, he just does not get the job done. I have zero faith that if the Vikings do make it into the playoffs, that they'll get past. I just can't see them getting past the divisional round in the playoffs with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. The next tier for me is tier 4. It is the maybe tier. And it only has one team in it. It's the Green Bay Packers. We do not know what Jordan Love is, point blank. We know he's big, athletic, strong arm, talented. They've got all the ingredients elsewhere, in my opinion, to be a really competitive football team. I love the young talent they added at receiver last year. Then you go add Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft at tight end in the draft this year. They've gotten more talented on both sides of the ball over the last couple seasons, but of course, losing Aaron Rodgers, don't know what you have at quarterback, and Jordan Love. I would not be surprised at all if the Green Bay Packers make the playoffs in 2023, but with Jordan Love at quarterback, just the unknown of what that brings, I could not put them in tier 3 with the teams that should make the playoffs, but I think they have a very good chance to make it in 2023. Tier 5 for me is the NFC South, just a very strange division. Couldn't really parse out where I expect these teams to finish, so I put them all here, 9 through 12, tier 5, it is the NFC South. At the top of the tier, I have the Atlanta Falcons. Can Desmond Ridder be competent? If he can, they should compete for a playoff spot. They should make the playoffs if Desmond Ridder can be confident, based on the fact that they have an unbelievable group of skill position players. Talk about adding Bijan Robinson. I know positional value, but this is a guy that can dramatically change any offense he enters. You've got Drake London, you've got Kyle Pitts, you've got a talented offensive line, an influx of talent on the defensive side of the ball with David Onyemata, Jesse Bates, Calais Campbell. We already had AJ Terrell and Grady Jarrett, of course. So I think this is a group that really can make a push and be a really tough out late in the season if Desmond Ridder can be that guy for them, can just be competent. At 10, I have the Carolina Panthers. Love the coaching staff, love Bryce Young, love the overall direction that they're heading in. I like a lot of the talent across the roster. I think Von Bell was a really underrated signing on the defensive side of the ball. But do I really expect them to make a playoff push in 2023? No, I don't. And frankly, they could be at the bottom of the division, but again, I had a hard time parsing out where these teams should be placed, and I just have more hope for the future of the Panthers than I really do for the next two teams, and that's the New Orleans Saints. Insert Derek Carr. I like their backs and their receivers quite a bit. Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams. They also drafted Kendre Miller. They've got talent. They've got a good offensive line. They restacked their defensive front with Brian Bresee and Isaiah Foskey in the draft. They could be a sneaky playoff team, but I wouldn't bet on it just because I think there's too much muddiness with the picture in New Orleans right now. There's no more Sean Payton who's going to just play call you out of anything and be a great leader and mastermind. You don't have that card in your pocket anymore. So I just don't really see the Saints making the playoffs in 2023. And at 12 here, the final team in the NFC South tier is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And on paper, they might have the most talented roster of the bunch. but you just have no idea what's going on at quarterback right now. It hasn't looked good so far at OTAs with Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield. No big surprise there. I don't think they're going to be bad enough to earn one of the top picks and land a Caleb Williams or a Drake May, but I don't think they're going to be good enough to inspire any confidence moving forward. They're going to have to figure out what they're doing at quarterback, what they're doing as a franchise, what is their direction as a whole. I'm just not sure with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. Next up in Tier 6, all by themselves. They're fun, but not playoff fun yet. At 13 overall, the Chicago Bears. I like a lot of what they've done. I love the potential Justin Fields has shown. I like adding DJ Moore, of course, Darnell Wright. There's some great pieces to work with, but I still think they have plenty left to prove on both sides of the ball before I can really put that team in a legitimate playoff spot, playoff contending role in 2023. Next up is our final tier in the NFC. It's Tier 7, and these are teams I'm just out on in 2023. Not really sure the direction of these teams moving forward. 14 overall, Washington Commanders. They have a lot of talent across the board, really good receivers, good running backs, good talent on the defensive side of the ball, especially up front. They have a ready-made roster, but I just don't think they have a clear direction at quarterback. Yes, you're going to try out Sam Howell, who was a mid-round pick for you. I don't think he's somebody who really inspires a ton of confidence. Could he be a competent quarterback for you? Sure, but we just haven't seen anything from him yet. You also added Jacoby Brissett to the mix, but I just don't see the Commanders really taking a step forward with the uncertain direction at quarterback. I can't see it for me. 15 overall, we've got the Los Angeles Rams. If they're healthy, I think they could sneak into the playoffs on the back end if there's some wonky things that happen in the NFC, on the back of Sean McVay's play calling, Matthew Stafford playing, and of course Cooper Kupp as well at receiver. But I just don't believe they will be able to stay fully healthy. And I think this is a franchise that knows if they are bad enough in 2023, they're going to have their chance at Caleb Williams, who plays, not too far from there at USC, or potentially Drake May. And I think either one of those guys would extend Sean McVay's career quite a bit. I think they would reinvigorate him as a head coach and a play caller and allow the Rams to move into a new era with this franchise. And then finally at 16 overall, Arizona Cardinals. I loved their draft. Still think it's a terrible roster with an unclear future. Yes, you like Kyler when he's at his best. He hasn't been at his best for a little while now. Maybe we haven't even seen Kyler Murray's best yet. I don't think he was getting the best coaching, but I think he was part of the problem with the previous regime as well. You like a couple other pieces, especially on defense. You talk about Budda Baker, Isaiah Simmons, BJ Ojolari. They added Paris Johnson on the offensive line. They added Garrett Williams on the back end at corner. But I just don't see it this year, right? I think defensive head coach coming in, Jonathan Gannon, just does not have all the pieces he needs yet for this defense to really get humming in 2023. That'll do it for our 2023 Summer Power Rankings heading into the 2023 NFL season. Did the AFC last week. Encourage you to go check that out. NFC is now in the books as well. Let me know what you think. You can hit me up on Twitter at Jordan Lugo. You can also drop a comment in the comment section below. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Really need y'all's help to get to 1,000 subscribers and get monetized here. Thanks so much for tuning in.